Hi everyone, it's Frugal here. As always, I have my coffee because otherwise somebody might just get killed. Let's talk today about company structures for your startup or your small business. So we know that we can have a sole proprietary, which is I own everything and I am frugal trading as Frugal. Or I can be somebody trading as, so I brand myself as a company. Secondly, what you get is you get a company, which you know about already. It's a Pty Limited. It's supposed to be limited liability. Obviously, if the directors make a lot of trouble, then there could be repercussions. But it's a separate entity, and then you get a trust. So many of, for example, the wine farms in Cape Town, in the Cape region, they are in trusts. Also, politicians, they pop their stuff in trusts. But now the big question is how do I structure my small business or my startup? To be beneficial for everybody, using big words like synergy, mutual beneficial, blah, blah, blah. How do I actually make this work for me? So, as a business owner, I do not like giving away equity, i.e. shares. I do not like giving away my company for the simple reason that it's my company. I do not want to work for a boss. And when you're giving away your shares, it actually means that somebody else is becoming your boss, which is the shareholders. And they can have more power than you depending how many shares they have. If they've got more than 50%, they sort of have a majority. So then they can influence, some of your decisions and force you to do certain things. We see in many cases in startups where what would happen is that the founder would start and they call it dilution. So your share portion gets diluted with every round of funding that you get. And then eventually the guy sits with, say, 20 or 30%, and he gets voted out by the 70% of the shareholders in their business. So there's a couple of ways. Early on, what you can do is firstly, like I've mentioned, you can say you're able to work for equity or do a share to say, we'll pay you a salary plus you can get equity depending on certain conditions, i.e. you've worked here for a couple of years, months, days, reached certain sales goals, all of those type of things. The big problem with that is, again, I'm giving away my company. The second option that you've got is you can say, well, I'm going to do a profit share. So just be very clear, because this is one of those gray areas where people don't always know what they're actually getting themselves into. So they think they're getting shares, but technically it is profit share. And unfortunately in English, it's the same word, but it's got a different meaning here. So what that would mean is, for example, you would say, I want to reward you for the work that you're doing in my company. So if the company is making a profit, I'm giving you a piece of the profit. That is a great incentive rather than a bonus at the end of the month to say, well, for example, if the company made X amount of money, then you will get a percentage of that. As a bonus, you would say, well, you would get a 13th check or something. So there's definitely these things that you can consider. But it's very important that you actually explain it to the business partner or to the employee or to the person that's actually doing the work so that they actually understand what it is. The other option is you pay them a salary. If you don't want to give away your company and you like your profits very much, you pay them well and they do a good job. Do I think it's really cool? Absolutely. Another way that you can do it is you can outsource. So, for example, in many cases, you can say, listen, I have a contract for a year with my supplier, with a client or somebody, and I'm basically pimping out somebody. So I'm saying, I need a bum on seat on that side. I like to use the example of a software developer. I say, listen, I need a software developer. So I find one, I recruit one, I put the bum on the seat, and I get paid a commission for the next year that the contractor sits at the client. So there are different ways that you can structure it. As a startup, in general, what you would want to do is you want to keep a lot of the stuff in-house because outsourcing can be expensive. Having said that, the liability and being able to fire people, especially if it is a corporate client or a company that's actually giving you services such as Google Ads or software development even, it's easier to get rid of a company rather than, if the person is not an employee. I know that people are going to say, oh my goodness, how dare you say that, but the fact of the matter is, if a startup is going to survive, you need to have agility. And for that reason, that's why most startups do not go the route of having hardware, but rather having software as a service, so that they can just say, listen, I'm going to put a fraction of that money away for the moment, and basically, buy a server on a monthly basis, something like Azure or AWS, and say, like hosting basically, rather than actually hosting their own server with their own hardware and everything, because it just brings the costs down and the risk, much lower as well. So this is just a couple of thoughts with regards to how do I structure it, how do I communicate it. You can also do other things like get a 6-month contractor in place, or just do lean. Tell your software developer, listen, I'm going to pay you only for little pieces of work, doing it on a freelance basis, saying, listen, can I have you for the next 2 weeks, or quote me on this small little piece of work, and once you're happy with that, then you continue on that. I highly recommend that, doing more of an incremental thing. But if you've got an existing business, it does make sense having something in place to motivate the person to actually work harder, to actually, make a bit more money. But just remember, for some people, they are not motivated by money. And for that, you can tell them, for example, I will give you, if you reach these targets, I'll give you a long weekend, which I've also seen. And it does work. Some people are just like, oh yes, I'll take that long weekend, and I'll definitely, I'll go do everything in my power to make that target. Just make sure the targets are reachable. So now that you know more about a little bit about structures for your startup and how to motivate those people, have a wonderful day and happy investing.